Upon the bomb to vaporize the bone. Insidious isotopes are scrambling a cell. On the leash, we'll use it well, we'll power our home. Microwave feast when the bladder would gel. Bury the rest on the mother's lawn.
Alright, skitty bebop, my cool cats and kittens, and welcome to the show. That was National Sacrifice Zone by Zero Defects. That was really Zero Defects. It was a poem originally by a guy named Vince Packard, who used to go by the name Vince Rancid, who did the cover of the first Zero Defects cassette release back in the 80s, and the covers of the two Zero Defects CDs in the 2000s. And he wrote this poem, and Jimmy brought it to the band, and I don't know who had the idea of making it like cool jazz, but we all got together and came up with something that sounded to us like cool jazz, and that's what you got. There you go, Zero Defects. A little bit unusual for you. Okay, so people have been asking, what's your new book about? And I always have a hard time explaining that because, you know, I get so close to it that I don't know what it's about. But that's a cop-out answer. That's like the heavy metal band who says, you know, we're not heavy metal. We're different. We're not just average heavy metal, you know. We're just, we're like our own thing, you know. So it's, so I don't want to be like one of those guys. So let me read you the back of the book, which was, I don't remember if I wrote this or if the publishers wrote this, or if I wrote it and then they rewrote it, but here's what it says anyway. It says, a reader-friendly guide to Zen Buddhist ethics for modern times. Okay. In the West, Zen Buddhism has a reputation for paradoxes that defy logic. In particular, the Buddhist concept of non-duality, the realization that everything in the universe forms a single integrated whole, is especially difficult to grasp. In The Other Side of Nothing, Zen teacher Brad Warner untangles the mystery and explains non-duality in plain English. To Warner, this is not just a philosophical problem. Non-duality forms the bedrock of Zen ethics, and once we comprehend it, many of the perplexing aspects of Zen suddenly make sense. Drawing on decades of Zen practice, he traces the interlocking relationships between Zen metaphysics and ethics, showing you how a true understanding of reality and the ultimate unity of all things instills in us a sense of responsibility for the welfare of all beings. When we realize that our feeling of separateness from others is illusory, we have no desire to harm any creature. Warner ultimately presents an expansive overview of the Zen ethos that will give beginners and experts alike a deeper understanding of one of the world's enduring spiritual traditions. Warner's voice is much needed in American Buddhism Library Journal. I always think it's like the quote about Spinal Tap that they use to promote them, which is, Spinal Tap continues to fill a much-needed void. I think that's me. Brad Warner continues to fill a much-needed void. So my last book was Letters to a Dead Friend about Zen, and you've all gone and bought that, and you know what that's about. I wrote 2 books about Dogen before that, which were It Came From Beyond Zen and Don't Be a Jerk. And trying to come up with something to write after that, I didn't know what to do. And I had this idea about writing a book about UFOs, which was a weird idea because I'm not like a true believer in UFOs. They probably never have me. They should have me as a guest on Ancient Aliens, commentating about Ancient Aliens. I would love to do that, so, you know, have me on any time that you want, Giorgio. But you know, I'm not one of those kind of guys. But I am interested in the subject and what it means, and so I started writing this book about UFOs. But then it wasn't getting anywhere, and I was trying different approaches, and I didn't really have anything going on that UFO book. Or I had, those of you who subscribe to me on Patreon will see the little bit that I did have, which was written in the form of a novel, but it was too strange, and I didn't know where to go from that. But it's on my Patreon page if you want to see it as a Patreon exclusive. You can see a few of the failed UFO book chapters. So a bunch of things happened, you know, in the world. And I don't want to talk about those things. But one of the things that I noticed in the summer of 2 years ago was that a lot of Buddhists were behaving extraordinarily badly on social media, doing things that I never would have expected, advocating violence and advocating segregation and advocating terrible things, you know, and they all seemed to be really confused. And a lot of these were sort of fan Buddhists, not really teachers, but some of them were teachers too. And I thought, oh my God, Buddhist teachers themselves don't seem to understand Buddhist ethics. What can I do about that? And of course, the obvious thing, I don't know if of course is right, but anyway, the obvious thing to me seemed to do to kind of try to refute that. And I thought, well, you know, you go around refuting somebody and you just come up with an argument. And I've always thought that a better way to refute somebody is to present a better argument. Like don't even try to refute what they say. Don't even try to tell them they're wrong. Put forth a better argument. And I thought Buddhism has had a better argument about morality and ethics for 2,500 years that somehow Buddhists themselves in America and Europe seems to have largely misunderstood or not even gotten the message. So I started researching Buddhist ethics, and I have this, well, I've put it away already because I'm packing to move, but I have this kind of folder that I got that was produced by the Soto Zen Buddhist Association back when they used to produce good things for Soto Zen Buddhists to use before they got completely sidetracked on something else and don't seem to be interested in Buddhism at all anymore. But they used to produce these great scholarly things, and it was a deep dive into the origins of Buddhist ethics and the various different ways that the Buddhist ethical system has been expressed. And I started looking through that, and I thought there's tremendous material in here for a book. So based on that, I go through all of the Buddhist precepts and the Noble Eightfold Path, which are the main two ethical Buddhist systems. So the Noble Eightfold Path, I can tell you right here: right view, right thinking, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right balanced state is what my teacher calls it, but it usually is called right meditation. Then the Buddhist precepts, the grave precepts: I vow not to kill, I vow not to steal, I vow not to hold excessive desires, I vow not to lie, I vow to refrain from intoxication, vow not to dwell on past mistakes, I vow not to praise self and berate others, vow not to be covetous, I vow not to give way to anger, and I vow not to disparage Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And all of this, as I was writing it and looking at the various different ways it's been expressed in Buddhism, is based on non-duality. And I've gone so far into reading about non-duality that I hate the word non-duality. I think the word non-duality is, we're probably going to have to throw it away, but I used it a lot in this book because it's the only word we got for it. But it's this idea of the universal oneness. And universal oneness in Buddhism is not an abstract thing. So I thought for many years of my study and practice that it was an abstract thing, that universal oneness was something over there, you know, something out in the cosmos was universal oneness, but here I am, and I'm not in universal oneness, I'm in separateness. There's Ziggy over there, there's my base over there, there's all these other things, and I am one, and I'm one thing that's different from all these other stuff. And that is how it's often expressed when people try to explain Buddhist ethics. They go for this two truths thing. And I know it's totally traditional to say there's true truth, there's the absolute truth, and there's the relative truth. But the way I always learned it from Gudo Nishijima Roshi and from Tim McCarthy, my first teacher, is not in terms of two truths. Not that there's an abstract universal oneness over there and then we're in the other truth over here, but that this truth, this is universal oneness. This right here, right what you're experiencing right now, sitting there on your couch and the popcorn all over the couch and everything. You and me sitting here making this video, you doing whatever you're doing, is universal oneness right here and right now. That's where Buddhist ethics comes in. Because universal oneness is this experience right now, this is where ethics comes in. And the way I ended up summing it up, and not to bury the lead, I'll just give you the first page of the book. So there's the first page of the book. And since I can't read it on the screen, I'm going to read it to you here. It is, you are the universe, but you keep punching yourself in the face. So stop doing that. That's all there is to say, the end. And then, of course, I've got, how many pages? 386 pages more to explain what I mean by that. And it does seem to take 386 pages. This is, I think, the longest book I've written. Sit Down and Shut Up was also pretty long, but this one I think might beat Sit Down and Shut Up by a few pages. So it's the thickest book I've written. So I'm trying to explain why these precepts come out of the understanding of universal unity and why they are so important and why there are no exceptions to them. Why you can't advocate for violence and horrible things or do violent and horrible things expecting a good outcome from doing violence or doing something terrible or doing something hurtful. You can never expect that to work. And why fighting about things doesn't really work. Although debate is very important, I think, in society, but fighting is not so important. I also spent 5 chapters talking about this essay by Dogen called Buddhas Alone Together with Buddhas. It's not even written here, I had to remember it. Which is one of my favorite Dogen essays of all time. And weirdly enough, it's one I've never seen anybody else make a commentary on. Now, there might be some commentary on it in Japanese. I assume there is because there's a huge body of literature about Dogen in Japanese. But in English, I've never even seen one person do a commentary on Buddhas Alone Together with Buddhas at Dogen's essay. So I did it. I did a 5-part commentary on it, which I think ties the whole ethical thing into the whole non-duality thing. And I guess you're just going to have to read it and see how it goes. I also did my favorite chapter of this book is about Ziggy, who was then new in my life when I started writing that chapter. His chapter 36 called Who Walked My Dog? And I think it's the longest chapter in the book. And it's a detailed examination of who walked my dog. I had, as it says in the chapter, I was taking a break from writing and Ziggy had to go out, so I walked him around the neighborhood like I do 3 or 4 times every day. I take him on a lot of walks, so he's never wanting for walks. And I contemplated, who am I? Who is this thing walking the dog? Logically, what is this dog walking entity? And I wrote about that, and I was really happy with that one. So that's in there too. And then the final chapter is what I call the human project, and it's me speculating about the ultimate nature of reality, which is something that Zen teachers are not supposed to do. It's one of the frustrating things about Zen is if you look at most other religions, I don't know if most other religions, but a lot of other religions have will tell you what the ultimate nature of reality is. I'll tell you one that I know offhand because I hung around with the Hare Krishnas. Their ultimate nature of reality is that Krishna created everything, and he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and if you're really, really good, you get to go live forever in Krishna Loka, and it's the topmost planet, and there are other planets that are different planets in the planetary system, so they don't talk about different dimensions or levels of reality. They talk about it in terms of planets, and each of these planets is different, and they're heaven planets and hell planets, and it's all laid out. You know, the Mormons have one of these, who's those people? The Scientologists, very famously, it was parodied on South Park what their version is. The Zen Buddhists don't have one because they believe that any description of reality falls short and there's no point in making a description of ultimate reality. But I decided to do it anyway as the final chapter of the book, and just for poops and laughs, there's my description of what the ultimate nature, or what I think the ultimate nature of reality is. Some of you have been asking about the audiobook. I did record the audiobook, but when I went on audible.com to upload it a couple of days ago, it wouldn't let me upload because it's not officially for sale. So until the book is officially for sale, which is May 10th, apparently I can't upload, and I'm going to see what happens after May 10th, and if I can upload it on May 10th, great, and if I can't, I'm going to contact audible.com and figure out why. But that seems to be their policy. So it'll take, I'll upload it as soon as I can, and then it'll take a week or maybe sometimes 2 weeks to process, and then the audiobook will be available. But the reason I mentioned the audiobook is I did the audiobook of this already, recorded it already, and it's all done. But when I recorded the final chapter, the Human Project chapter, I was going, I don't think that's exactly it anymore. Not that I think it's completely different, but, you know, I wrote that probably almost a year ago. You know, it takes a long time for books to get put together and printed. And I'm going, well, I'd probably do that a little differently. It'd be like 99% what I wrote in the book, and then 1% would be different. But we can talk about that in the next book. So that's what this book is about. And it's also got a little autobiographical thing that I thought was necessary for the book that I think is better than what I wrote autobiographically in Hardcore Zen. I think it's actually more real than the Hardcore Zen version, which has tended to fixate on my punk rock stuff and not really on the rest of my life. So there's a chapter like that too, in case you're interested in such things. So that's what it is. And what you got to do, what your duty right now is to buy this and make it a million seller, because I'm not desperate for money or anything, but I bought a house with my wife, and I couldn't have bought a house without somebody to partner with because I don't make enough money and don't have good enough credit to buy a house. But now I got a wife who has a real job, and unlike this job, which I'm doing right now, which banks do not consider a real job, so we were able to buy a house. And now I'm thinking, well, if we can make this book sell 1 million copies, maybe we can afford this darn house that we bought. And next week, you're going to start seeing videos shot from that house. If all goes well, we're supposed to move in on Saturday. So that's all we got from me. And if you want to see more of me and you want to donate to what I'm doing, you can go to the URL you're seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. As I've been saying, unless this book sells 1 million copies, my main source of income is still going to be your donations, and that's honestly what I expect to happen. But I know some people are into the power of the secret, so I should manifest a 1 million selling book. But anyway, if you don't want to buy a book or you don't want to contribute to me at all, that's fine. You don't have to, because this is offered for free. But your contributions are really important to me, so I appreciate them. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Buy the book. See you later. Bye. Ziggy, you know what the folks at home don't see? They don't see that you're laying down in a little pile of fur near my feet most of the time when I'm making these videos, and then as soon as I turn the camera on, you get up. So they think you're always standing up. And Anyway, you're a very serious dog. That's why your tail is down right now, because you're very serious and thinking about stuff. Anyway, we'll see you later, Ziggy. Bye.